For every golfer who is truly loved, there is one who is truly hated, and Patrick Reed is a player that fits into that second category perfectly. Commonly referred to as the most hated and most controversial man in golf, he's been known to snap at fans, curse on TV, and even be left playing practice rounds by himself because no one wants to play with him. But how did this happen? The first domino was due to his arrogance in 2014. After winning 3 events in 7 months on the PGA Tour, he claimed that he was a top 5 player in the world and compared himself to the likes of Tiger Woods. Slightly arrogant, yes. Delusional, also true. At that time, Reed had never even played in a major. It was like a rookie in basketball claiming that they were as good as LeBron James before even reaching a playoff. He'd learned the hard way, and this claim was thrown back at him for every missed cut or weekend meltdown. But before he even had a chance to reach the PGA, his time at university had left golfers whispering rumours about his foul play. From moving his balls for better lies, reporting better scores than he actually shot, and maybe even stealing $400 from his teammates. He was already known as a troublemaker and a cheat before he even turned pro. Multiple arrests due to alcohol later, and he was kicked out of the University of Georgia golf team. The alleged serial cheater left himself hated by most golf fans and even his fellow players. And he didn't learn his lesson. Left in a bunker, his practice swings conveniently gave him a better lie, clearing away sand from the back of the ball. He'd go on to blame the camera for making it look worse than it was. Dishonest, arrogant, and untrustworthy are 3 words that couldn't be further from the truth when describing Tony Finau. After being a highlight of the popular Netflix series Full Swing, Finau has become a fan favourite. After missing a putt in a high school tournament, he lost his cool and threw a tantrum afterwards. He recalls the silence in the car ride home with his dad. He understood what that meant. That's not how he raised me. That's not what champions do. And he has taken that approach into his professional game. He has been very clear that his family comes before golf. Or as good as he might become, his family will always be the priority in his life, with his wife and kids attending almost every tournament that he plays in. Rory Mcilroy was quoted saying, "I've known Tony for 20 years. He comes from a great family. He's a wonderful person." John Rahm said, "If you don't like Tony Finau, there's something wrong with you." Despite never ranking outside the top 25 golfers in the world since turning pro, Tony has gone through long periods without winning events. But he never let that affect him. He never complains. He puts his head down and goes about his business. When he eventually broke his dry streak at the Northern Trust, he received over 1,000 text messages congratulating him, with the very first being from none other than Tiger Woods, the man who inspired Tony to play golf. Tony has gone on to be a role model for millions of young golfers, as someone to aspire to be like. Safe to say Phil Mickelson doesn't fall into that same category. His ability is undoubted, spending 26 years in the sport's top 50 players, and being the oldest major winner of all time. But some of his comments throughout the years, as well as the scandals he's been involved in, have left him as a figure you either hate or despise. The first domino fell in 2013, when he complained to a news outlet about the high state taxes in California, which was obviously saw as insensitive and out of touch, given he had made $5.5 million in that year alone. And it wouldn't be the last time money would be an issue in his career, given that he is notoriously plagued with severe gambling addictions. 2014 came around, and after a Ryder Cup loss, he openly criticised team captain Tom Watson, which was seen as a very ungentlemanly thing to do. The tournament is over, there's nothing to gain, but he continued to discredit the man who tried his best to help America win. 2016 brought potentially his biggest scandal to date. Involved in an insider trading investigation, his relationship with sports gambler Billy Walters left him with nearly $1 million in profit. After turning his back on Billy, who was supposed to be his friend, and returning the money that he made, he managed to get off the hook. But his friend would go to prison for 5 years, maybe a sign of his character. In 2018, he deliberately hit a moving ball after missing a putt, resulting in a 2-stroke penalty and severe backlash from golf fans branding him as unsportsmanlike. And if that hasn't convinced you of why he's so controversial, he went to live golf. And when questioned about his choices, he ignored any questions about Saudi Arabia's human rights record and hinted that it was just a decision that might lead the PGA to award players with more money, leaving him losing sponsorships, getting backlash, and even taking a break from the sport. And Bryson Dechambeau is definitely no stranger to similar controversy, but it's how he turned his reputation around to be one of the most loved players in golf that is at the front of everyone's everyone's mind. From his arrogance, wacky scientific methods, and brash comments on golfing heritage courses, he was indeed one of the most exciting prospects since Tiger Woods himself, but he wasn't going to win any popularity contests. That was until he launched his YouTube channel. People had the opportunity to get to know the real Bryson, behind the wacky theories like soaking golf balls in Epsom salt to see which side was heavier, to his at times very slow play on the golf course, while he made 15 different calculations. They saw a down-to-earth, entertaining man who was simply passionate about the game of golf in a way that hadn't been seen before. Just because someone is different doesn't mean it's necessarily bad. A lot of golfing greats were the first of their kind. He has since backtracked on his previous comments, blaming them on immaturity, but has also become one of the most popular players on the tour, whether it's taking on 400-yard drives over lakes or interacting with spectators and apologizing for not wanting to pull out his driver. After leaving for Live Golf, a lot of people were saying good riddance, but now they're begging for him to come back. But the same can't be said for fellow Live Tour player Dustin Johnson. Described as someone who has cement for a brain, he has risked throwing away his career on multiple occasions for nothing more than a hit of dopamine. Once the #1 golfer in the world, he failed a drug test in 2009 for marijuana. The PGA gave him a chance and let him off without any severe punishment or suspensions. 3 years later, he was caught with cocaine in his system. You'd think he would have learned from the first time, but no. The PGA kept it under wraps but gave him a multi-month suspension, which to the public was called a break. The first time, fine, an early mistake at a young age. The second time, yeah, you're pretty stupid. But a third time, this is why Rick Riley said that he was so dense that light bends around him. Once again, being caught with cocaine in his system, he was given a 6-month public suspension. Luckily for the PGA, he'd eventually go to Live Golf, which could make even the most loved player severely hated on its own. But when asked about whether he regretted the move or cared about the controversy around Saudi Arabia, his attitude reflected, "I don't care, I just came here for the money." He has since underperformed in every PGA tournament that he has played in, and has been extremely poor in his Live Tour performances as well. It's safe to say, if he didn't care about golf before, he definitely doesn't now. And one of the biggest people against Dustin Johnson's move to Live was Rory Mcilroy, one of the most loved players in golf. A role model for many, and at one point a golfer that many thought would challenge Tiger for the greatest golfer of all time. But that's not necessarily why he's loved. In the time following Live Tour's initial announcement, Rory was one of the first golfers to step up and fight for what he thought was right. Golf should be about more than just playing for lots of money. It should be to compete against the best of the best, and Live Tour split up the best. He was also very vocal against the infamous darkness around Saudi Arabia and its various humanitarian issues. Aside from that, his energy when he's playing well ignites the whole golf course. His signature fist pumps and Irish passion make him an exciting player to watch when he's on his A game. His approachable demeanor and sense of humor make him one of the most popular players on tour. But that couldn't be said for now retired Vijay Singh. A 3-time major winner and at one point the #1 golfer in the world, he built a reputation as someone that was widely disliked throughout golf. And that all started in 1985, when cheating allegations were brought up against him. Whilst playing in the Asian golf circuit, he was accused of altering his scorecard to qualify for the next round, falling a single stroke under the cut. He was still unknown at this time, desperate to make a name for himself, but he was found guilty and given a suspension by the Asian Golf Federation. This ruined his reputation before he even made it to the big leagues, and gave him the stigma of being a cheater that followed him throughout the rest of his career. And it wouldn't help that in 2013, he was caught cheating once again. He was caught using deer antler spray that included a performance-enhancing drug that prompted human growth hormone. Vijay claimed that he didn't know it contained banned substances, but why else would you be using deer antler spray on yourself? Even Bubba Watson, who could have easily made it onto the most hated list, publicly stated, "It's sad that people live and die by the sport and have to take deer antler spray to try and be better." And someone who was no stranger to taking all kinds of weird substances was John Daly, a gambling addict with one of the most controversial diets in all of professional sport, but a player who stood up for the casual golfer and acted as a role model for players who didn't want to take the game too seriously. He was the ultimate advocate for the average Joe, turning up on a Sunday for a round and having a couple beers and having some fun with their friends. But make no mistake, he was also one of the most gifted golfers that has ever played the game. John wrote in his biography about a hilarious encounter with Tiger Woods that just about sums him up. He spotted Tiger near the clubhouse in his workout clothes. He told him to come and join him and the boys for some drinks. Tiger declined, saying he was going to the gym, and said, "If I had your talent, I'd be doing the same thing you're doing." When the best golfer of all time says that you have more talent than he does, you know you're something special. The man who went against every single stereotype a golfer could possibly have. It's easy to wonder how good he would have been if he trained like Tiger. But a character almost as polarizing as John plays once again on the LIV Tour. Seems like a recurring theme. Sergio Garcia has achieved significant success throughout his career, but from temper tantrums to racist comments, there are definitely a good amount of people who hate him. His statement against Tiger Woods, saying, "We will have him round every night, we will serve fried chicken," was deemed wrong, hurtful, and clearly inappropriate by Tiger himself, with Garcia claiming that he didn't mean to offend. How stupid do you have to be? He has also been criticised for his slow play by many of his fellow players, as well as parading around with an air of arrogance and unkind attitude. And that was before he beat up multiple golf courses after making awful shots. A temper tantrum you'd expect from a child being done by a man in their 40s. But while Sergio thinks the world of himself, Joel Dahman is one of the most humble and self-depreciating athletes in the world. Peaking at world number 58th, he is an incredibly good golfer. But after he became a fan favourite on Full Swing, fans were able to see a deeper and darker side of Joel's relationship with the sport and with his mental health, showcasing his wholesome and heartwarming relationship with his caddy, who ended up giving him an ultimatum between caddying for someone else or seeking help from a sports psychologist, meant that he was an underdog that millions began to root for. And that was before we found out that he had battled through cancer and beat it, and didn't let it stop him from achieving his dreams of becoming a professional golfer. His battle with mental health, and maybe a little bit too much alcohol, makes him a guy that people cheer for when they see that he made a cut.